Y'all know I have to burn my incense for this. What's up? It's Dawn, the Self-Esteem Queen, and this is a review on Preachers of LA Season 1, Episode 1. But I will review this show for you, and I actually watched it last night, and I was so exhausted after watching it last night that I just went to sleep. That's how exhausted I was. So you have these let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pastors. Pastor, bishop, minister. So one thing I wish they would have done is, get into the whole title thing, because some of them were called bishops, some of them were called pastors, and then one of them calls himself a minister. So you have Bishop Ron Gibson, Bishop Noel Jones, Bishop Clarence McLendon, Pastor Wayne Chaney, Minister Detrick Haddon, and Jay Hazard, I think. I might have that wrong. Anyway, so, there is so much scandal within the Christian church. And I find it amazing that they now want this to be on public display. I'm flabbergasted, really. But I actually did like the show. And so it starts with Minister Detrick. Evidently, he's a pastor, a preacher, a gospel singer. I'm sure that I've probably heard one of his songs before and didn't even know it was him, because I'm not into that. Like, if I hear a song and it's good, then I'll say, okay, who sings that? Otherwise, I'm still listening to stuff from 10 years ago, because it still hits me right. Okay, so he's a Stellar Award winner, and he says he was called to the ministry at age 10 and had his first sermon at 11, but then that he got married young, and as a result of such, it didn't work out. And in the process of him getting divorced, he moved from one place to another and met his current fiance, who he has a daughter with. Okay, so he has a daughter with his fiance, who is a member of Bishop Noel Jones's church, the City of Refuge. And so he's putting on this big concert, and the concert is like the rebirth, I guess, of his career, because he was shunned when he had a baby out of wedlock. Now, here's the interesting thing. So they don't live together. He and his fiance, they don't live together. So I'm not supposed to have an opinion on this, but my thing is, why are you going over there in this? He says that he goes over to her house, to the fiance's mom's house, which is where she lives with her mom, and he has to reintroduce himself to his baby every day. Okay, you've already knocked her up. That means you guys have already had premarital sex. Move in together already. I don't understand that. So that's just something I don't understand, but it's not for me to understand, and it's not for you to understand. I want people to remember that you're watching reality TV, not to form an opinion and to dislike or like people, but just to see what goes on in other people's lives, so you can either say, thank God I am not going through that, or you can say, wow, I wish that I could live like that. Okay. So he also talks about how he didn't like it when his testimony was used against him, and they started to bash his current fiance. Now, I don't know about you, but where I'm from, if you have a baby out of wedlock and the person is still married and they're separated or whatever, they're still very much married, and so there's going to be judgment. And I don't know what your testimony is. Is your testimony that you got over being ostracized because you're a minister and you didn't abstain from sex and you didn't wait until your marriage was over to have a kid with somebody else? I don't know. Is that your testimony? Like, I feel like people who are working for God are definitely under a different type of microscope. And so I think it's really important that people who work for God really take the time to be accountable for their actions before they have to apologize, because you're representing God. That would be like if I was a teacher and I did porn on the side. If they found out that I did porn on the side, they would probably fire me from being a teacher, as they do all these other teachers who moonlight as porn stars. So that's how I feel about pastors who, ministers, bishops. Yeah, I want to include everybody in that. That's how I feel about those who, you know, believe that it's a testimony to get over being ostracized. I mean, that was something that was within your control. And so, yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. Okay, then we go to Bishop Ron Gibson. He has a church in Riverside. He's been a pastor for 25 years. I love how they show his big old estate. It's huge. And when I first saw him, he actually reminded me of a gangster. Like, he has like a swag about him that's so like, I used to bang. And sure enough, we find out that, yeah, he did used to bang. He used to be a Crip. And he was about to leave his house and go into this this neighborhood, probably like the projects or whatever, where he's from, to mentor a young guy that just got out of jail. And he was telling his wife that he was going and he had God in his Glock. He didn't need nothing but God in his Glock. And I thought it was funny because, you know, I'm sort of like that also. Like, when I would rescue teen prostitutes, I really didn't need a police officer or anything like that. I would just go rescue. So he was a Crip. He used to be addicted to PCP. And when he was overdosing, he heard his mom tell him to call on Jesus. And from that moment on, he felt he was called to serve the Lord. So then he says that he went from pushing dope to hope. And I thought that was funny. I love all these little cliches that the pastors use. I know that, you know, because I've been in this world of motivational speaking for so long, I guess I only really see a pastor sometimes as a motivational speaker who happens to talk about God, just like I'm a motivational speaker that happens to talk about self-esteem. And so anyway, I love how Pastor Ron Gibson relates to young men who, you know, are sort of out there in the streets. I love how he, you know, sort of keeps it real. You know, he's been married for 31 years. And I just really love the realness about him. But I promise you that most pastors who are financially successful used to be pimps or gangsters. I'm just saying. Okay, next we have Bishop Noel Jones, who was born in the U.S. but raised in Jamaica. Little side note, he's also the brother of Grace Jones. So basically, his whole thing is he's been divorced for 20 years, and he says that, you know, basically he lives like in a 3-4 story house right on a cliff. So, you know, you couldn't pay him to preach, but somebody's paying those bills. Basically, he was just saying that women throw themselves at him. So it's difficult to be a single pastor because women will throw themselves at you in a way that, you know, gives you like a rock star complex. So, okay, then it goes back to Detrick. And I laughed because I said to myself, I noticed his name is Detrick, like the trick. But anyway, that's probably neither here nor there. He's stressed out because of this concert that he's putting on. It's a huge event, and, you know, everything has to go right. And he goes to the fiance's mother's house, and he's talking to his daughter, and then they leave. The fiance and him leave without the daughter. Jesus walk, Jesus walk, Jesus walk with me. So you don't live with her. You have to come and reintroduce yourself to her every day, like 50 first dates. And yet you're coming to pick her up and the fiance and not take your daughter too. Confused. Don't like the way that was edited. And I don't like the way that was edited because it didn't really give, like, the perception it gave me was, yeah, I'm coming to get my broad, but I'm gonna leave my kid. Like, huh? You know, if you don't see your kid every day, when you want to spend all your time with your kid, I don't get it. I don't understand. They should have told us where they were going or something like that. Anyway, so then it goes back to Bishop Gibson. That's the gangster, and he's talking to his wife about this man cave that he has, and it's just like a brief exchange between he and his wife about this man cave, which is basically a house where, you know, pastors can get together and talk about the different things that pastors go through and the problems that pastors endure and find solutions to those problems. Okay, great. So then it goes back to Detrick. He's now at City of Refuge, which is Noel Jones's church. And this is evidently where his concert is going to be put on. And he's upset because no one is ready. He's short with the musicians. It's really important for him. And basically, you know, he's an entertainer. And so as an entertainer, I know that his creative juices are probably flowing. Plus, he's stressed. So I don't think it's uncommon for somebody to be short with the people who are instrumental in his comeback. And yeah, that's how I feel about that. I mean, I yell sometimes when I'm frustrated or irritated with something, but he did seem a little short to be a minister. I mean, maybe somebody else should have taken on the role of keeping everybody at task or whatever, but he did seem a little short as a minister. Anyway, okay, so then it goes to this Bishop J. I can't pronounce his last name. I don't know. But he's been married for 26 years. He has one church, 2 separate locations. He lives in a nice, modest house. And it's amazing. And he's Caucasian. So it's amazing that the black pastors, you know, are, you know, kind of up. And he's just kind of, oh, it's weird to show the difference. But anyway, he's a skateboarder or is from like the skateboard like era, whatever. He moved from Alabama to California, and he became a cocaine addict and lost it all. And everything that he's been through, he basically uses in his ministry. And I love the fact that he and his wife actually work together in the ministry. She preaches, he preaches. I think that that's great because, number one, they've been married for 26 years. That means that she's been there through his tough times and she stayed. Nowadays, you see a lot of marriages, even within the church, break down due to lack of communication. And you wonder, if you're the pastor, how on earth could your marriage end? Like, aren't you the one that's supposed to be, you know, keeping marriages together? How can you keep other marriages together, but then your marriage ends? People, I'm here to tell you, it happens. I can motivate a whole bunch of people, but I can't stop people within my own family being dysfunctional. Can't stop it at all. Can't make people who know my past and my family love my present because they're still stuck in who I was in the past. But that is life. And I just think that I love Bishop J. Okay, so then we have Pastor Wayne Chaney. He is from Antioch Church in Long Beach. And I like him because he, you know, sort of is a man after my own heart. He basically says that he believes that there's an issue. You can be saved, sanctified, and sexual. He said God made us this way. And so, you know, why not? You should be able to show public displays of affection. Even if you're a Christian, there shouldn't be anything wrong with that because you're married. And so why curb that? Because you're a Christian. Christians are allowed to have sex too, and Christians are allowed to have public displays of affection too. So I liked him for that. I love his relationship with his wife. They seem so loving together, and they also work together in the ministry, which I think is great. And yeah, so then we go to Bishop Clarence McLendon. Now, I've heard about Bishop McLendon here around LA, but I've never been to his church. He looks like he has a big house like in Beverly Hills. That's the neighborhood that they showed, so I'm only assuming based on what they showed that that's where he lives. But it starts off with his wife Priscilla saying that she needs to talk to him about this crazy woman who has written a letter claiming that she's Mrs. McLendon, and she feels that her life is threatened and the kids' life are threatened because she's saying that their kids are actually her kids. What? She said that somebody wrote a letter, and in the letter it states that she's the wife. Like, I'm sure they can't make stuff like this up. Both two of his sons are in the ministry, and I actually like that they put him on here because he's more of the bougie type, right? And he believes that church is a business. Gotta applaud him for that, because I've been saying that for the last 20 years. Church is a business. It's a business. I've been saying that since 15 years old. It's a business. All the rituals, it's all a business. It's a business. And the way he sees it, he doesn't have a job, he has a life. So ministry is 24/7, and he therefore deserves to live the lifestyle that he lives. And trust me, he looks like he lives a very nice lifestyle. Okay, so then it goes back to Ron Gibson, who's on his way to Compton to see this guy JR, who just got out of jail. He goes and he inspires him and tells him that he should come to this concert that Detrick is putting on. And he says it'll be, just like any Lil Wayne or Birdman or Drake concert. I thought that was funny. Like, he know he a gangster still listening to Drake, and he know he a gangster. Anyway, so then he tells this guy, JR, I just buried your dad. And then it shows that when they were filming 3 months prior, he was just telling this guy, JR's dad, to get off heroin and all that. And then he ended up burying his dad. So, then it goes to the day of the concert, and Detrick is talking about how he's nervous because it's the first time that he and his fiance are stepping out as a couple, and it's sort of, this is, people coming out is, their way of saying that they forgive him for his infidelity and marriage or a baby out of wedlock and all that. And so it shows all the pastors rolling up in their nice luxury cars, and the who's who of like pastors are supposed to be there for this concert, and it's very inspiring. Everybody basically concludes that he still has it regardless of this thing. And here's the thing, it's like I think that they kind of over the top a little, but people mess up all the time. It's my understanding that Noel Jones has a kid out of wedlock with someone who was on a reality show. And the last time I heard, he was dating the girl from Players Club. Her name just slipped my mind. Lisa Ray. Lisa Ray. Lisa Ray. So he ain't perfect either, and people still go to his church. So, I think that, there's a certain place of accountability that people should have. And, it's great that he said that he stepped down, Detrick, that is. But anyway, he still has it. And he has Bishop Gibson come up and do the altar call. And he brings up JR and this OG Pyru, and Detrick tries to rush him off stage. And so then it goes to he says he does his prayer or whatever for these two or whatever. And to me, it was just off stage, because you don't, like, for an altar call, you don't tell somebody to come up. They're supposed to just come up, and there was no prayer. He was just saying, this is a Crip and this is a Blood, and it was sort of like he had his own agenda there. But that's just my personal opinion. And sometimes their editing can make it seem that way, so I don't want to judge, but it just seemed like that didn't have nothing to do with the concert. Like, if you come to do an altar call, you're supposed to say, and you accept your Lord as your personal Christ Savior, and you repent from all your sins. I ain't hear none of that. I just heard, brother, come up here, and brother, come up here, and we gonna pray for y'all. And then he was like, I'm gonna find y'all a church. It's like, why would you need to find them a church when they can come to yours? You should be able to have somebody drive them out the riverside or something, right? Like, that whole part was just confusing to me. So then the next day, it has Bishop Gibson at home talking about the concert, and he brought up to his wife that, he only got 5 minutes to do the altar call. And so he said that he wanted to bring it up in the man cave. And so then the wife says, well, I think you should talk to Detrick one-on-one by yourself first, you know what I mean? Because your problem is with him. It's not with everybody else. And so he, of course, disagrees because,
That's what gangsters do.
And you know, I wouldn't mess with him. Like I wouldn't mess with him. I just wouldn't. But anyway, he decides that he's going to bring it up at his man cave, and his wife basically said in her confessional that she knows her husband blows things out of proportion. So she knows that he puts 1,000 on 100, girl. She knows. And so then it goes to this man cave, and this man cave is like his other house that he lived in for 15 years. It's like a mini mansion too. And all the men are there. And then, of course, Bishop McLendon, bougie, has to come late. And he shows up with his 2 manservants, his assistants. All this 1,000 on 100, man. It's just... It just shows where different people are, you know. And I may not be in that field, but even in the field of motivational speaking, like different motivational speakers, they do that as well, you know. And me, I'm just like, give me some water and some fruit, and I can perform for as long as you need me to perform, like no problem. But others are like, well, I need to have this backdrop. I need to have these fresh lilies, and I need to have a purple chair with a shawl wrapped on the back. And that's Bishop McLendon. Like, he has bodyguards and all that type of stuff, I'm certain. Okay, so he says that he's on his way to another event. That's why he brought his manservants. That's why he's all dressed up or whatever. And so they start talking, and the question arose, should we charge a fee for the gospel? And so this was a question arose by that was brought up by Detrick, because he said that people normally cannot afford to pay his honorarium. And so Bishop Gibson basically asked Bishop McLendon, well, what do you think about that? And Bishop McLendon said, well, I mean, you know, basically this is my job, and you know, this is what I require to come perform, and this is where I'm most comfortable giving my God. And so if people can't meet me here, then I'm not meeting them nowhere down below that. That's basically what he said. It just gets all weird really short, because then they end up disagreeing, and then Detrick says, you know, before, you know, you were this big pastor, you didn't have no entourage. And they were like, yes, we did. You know, Bishop Gibson comes in, yes, we did. He probably talking about his crippin' friends, like, nah, nigga, I had an entourage along, and still have an entourage. Don't get it twisted. It's Crips all up in my church. That's what that's how I feel. But anyway, so then Detrick and Bishop McLendon get into it, to where somebody has to come in between them. Like, what? Pastors, are y'all doing this with cameras around? Knock it off. That's crazy. So, it's just crazy. It just shows that pastors also fall short. They're still human too. But it just saddened me to see them, you know, not agreeing to disagree respectfully, but instead going through this whole process to like shade each other. Immediately when it happened, I start thinking of my favorite song, Jesus Walk With Me. So far, you know, I do, you know, like it. I think that the same stereotypes that people have always heard about and talked about are now going to be brought to the forefront. I think that, you know, it's anytime that you do reality TV, you have to be willing to let them, you know, kind of show you in the light that they want to show you in. However, I really hope that the show is inspirational, and I really hope that it's not a whole bunch of just craziness, because, you know, if that's what you have to do to get more members to your church, then are you really attracting the right people to your church? And, you know, it's just, I don't know, y'all. So for the 7 people that wanted me to review this show, now the show has been reviewed. I will continue to review the show. Jesus Walk With Me.